Like you, I've seen world-class researchers completely lose the room, not because it was too complex, but because they presented like they write, and we don't process information that way. By the end of this video, you'll understand why audiences tune out and how to present your work so people stay with you. Let's start with the basic issue. Here's your basic journal article outline, right? Intro, method, results, discussion. I've drawn it to look like a filing cabinet. Well, as best I can draw a filing cabinet, because that's actually the way people use it. So if we switch over here, okay, here's a diagram. I'll color it in for you, okay? Here's just a bar chart. If we think about 100 researchers and how they might read, how they might consume your journal article, 60, 70, 80% of them are going to start in the results. A bunch of them are going to start in the discussion. A few might start in the methodology if they're particularly keen about the way you did something. But basically no one is going to start here. I've drawn the intro here because we assign journal articles often in classes with master's students, and they start here, but they're not actually researchers, right? So there are a few of them, but not our audience. Our audience would start here. Our audience, back to the filing cabinet, our audience gets interested. They read the abstract. They read the title. They get interested, and then they go and open the drawer where their interest is, and they start there. They don't start in the beginning and read through it. It's not a novel. It's a filing cabinet. So why do we present as if it's a novel when we know people don't treat it that way? When we know people treat it like a database? When they have the opportunity to choose how to consume the information, the one choice they won't make is the way that researcher in the beginning who lost the room, that's the way they present it. Because when you start here, you don't lose the room, and I want to talk about why. Okay, so you might be thinking just because they wouldn't choose to read it this way doesn't in itself mean it's not as good. And he'd be right, it's not the reason it's not as good. The reason it's not as good is it doesn't work as well. And the reasons it doesn't work as well, two are simple things about brain science, and one is about why people are in the room in the first place. The first reason it doesn't work as well is you're failing at the one thing that will get us to pay attention, and that's curiosity. We pay attention to things we're curious about, and you've not made us curious at all. You're using a pattern we know. We recognize this pattern you're using. You're going to talk for a while about the introduction, some of which we already know, and the rest of which we may well not be interested in. And then you're going to talk about methodology, and the same thing's true. And then finally, you're going to get to the interesting part when you start the results in the discussion. We're not curious about the first 5 minutes. We're going to tune out. We're going to grab our phone, maybe. Right? We see this, people are gonna, oh, okay, now that I know what you're gonna do, now that I know you're gonna follow the pattern I've seen 100 times, I'm just gonna check my email till you get to the curious part, and then, ooh, suddenly people are clapping and we miss the whole talk. The other reason that people aren't curious is they don't actually know if your talk is important yet. You haven't told them the part that they don't know that changes something for them. And until you tell them that part, they're not actually curious about the rest of the story. Once you tell them that part, they're curious, but you're doing it too late. You're doing it towards the end. You've already talked about the things that they now have questions about. You have the order wrong, right? The other reason this doesn't work very well is because our brains are lousy at holding information that we can't yet make sense of. And when you give us that introduction and you give us that methodology, without the end of the story yet, without the significance, without the thing that you found, without the thing that you figured out, we don't know what to pay attention to. We don't know what from those details in the beginning we'll have questions about because we don't know what questions we have. So, by not knowing what we have questions about, we just have to retain them. We don't know what to do with them. They don't have any meaning for us yet. So, we try and retain them. If we pay attention, we try and retain that information, and then we get to the towards the end when you give us the interest to go, oh, this is interesting. I wonder if they did X, which would be a good control and would make this, that would make this significant. But I can't remember if he did, I can't remember how he did that now. Maybe I'll ask him in the Q&A. Then your Q&A is suddenly about things you've already said. But if you do it the other way, if you give them the significance and then they're curious and then they can decide what to do with the information as you give it to them, they don't need to hold it in suspended animation. They can process it. We're really good at processing lots of information. We're just not good at holding information in suspended animation. That's the second brain science reason that presenting like a filing cabinet doesn't work very well. We don't read from the inside out. We could read the other way because it makes sense to read the other way and we just happen to choose. No, we read from the inside out because that's actually how our brains work. That's how we process information. So when you present like that journal article, when you present the way people wouldn't read, you're working against the way they naturally process information. Because the way they choose, the way we choose to read, that's actually the natural way. So these are two of the reasons, but I said there was a third one. Third one has to do with why we're here. When we read your journal article, when we make sense of the research that you did, I just said it. When we make sense of the research that you did, that's what we're doing when we read a research journal. We're making sense of it. We're deciding what's important. We're writing a story about it. How does this fit into the work that I do? But that's not why we're here. We're here to hear how it fits into the work that you do. We're here to hear your story about it. We're here to hear the things you think are particularly important. If we wanted the filing cabinet, we'd go to the journal article. But we came to your talk. We want to hear your version. And that's not a filing cabinet. That's a story about what you think is important, about what you think matters. That's your version of it. Not the whole thing, but the parts, if you were reading, you would choose to highlight. That's what we came. We want to know, what would the author highlight about this work if they were allowed to highlight it? Because in the presentation, that's what you're allowed to do. And that's actually, as an audience, what we want to hear. I know it's scary to think about doing things a bit differently, to not fit in and be like everyone else. But you know what happens when you're a little different? And that different is different in a good way. People like you, and people remember you, and people remember your research. And then your research has a bigger impact. And guess what? You do too. More influential postdoc position, tenure track job, if that's what you're searching for, or an industry offer, if that's what you're chasing. So ask yourself, will you keep doing it the same way? Be like most talks, mostly forgotten by the next coffee break? Or will you dare to present a bit different and be more effective for doing it? Now you know, now you choose.